The ninth episode of Andor continues the prison arc of the series. I personally didn't like it as much as the previous episode in Arcana 5, but I am still loving seeing all of the storylines and characters finally converging, like Bix and Dedra together on Ferrix. Last week I talked about how the series set us up to root for Miro as she worked against characters we deemed to be worse than she was, like Blevin. But now she's working against characters we like. She's tortured Pac, and she's getting ready to torture Bix. Excuse me, she calls it interviewing. And she has Dr. Gorst at her side, who has developed a new interviewing system the Empire is very excited about, and Dedra hopes Bix will cooperate without encouragement. It's just gross hearing her try to sanitize torture like that. Everyone knows what she really means. She's not fooling herself, but still casually lying about the reality of the situation comes with Imperial territory, and Dr. Gorst's friendly wave sent chills down my spine. We've seen Imperial torture in Star Wars before, Han Solo in The Empire Strikes Back, or Leia on the Death Star, a moment that is directly referenced in this episode, but torture has largely been left off-screen. Andor takes the time to set it up, allow us to feel Bix's dread, and even the torture itself isn't visually graphic, it's all audio that we can't hear, but it's described well enough that we allow our imaginations to run wild with what it might be. I mean, we know it's the screams of dying children. It's horrifying. This series has taken so much time to illustrate the horror of the Empire to us, to let us see that someone we were low-key kind of rooting for a few weeks ago is actually a monster, and always has been. In some stories, the Empire can be treated as a bit of a joke. We know they're the bad guys, but stormtroopers can't hit anything, and the officers are all bumbling fools. There is a place for that storytelling, to show the folly of the Empire, but Andor is not that place. This series wants us to see and feel how evil the Empire is on a very personal level. The Imperial Prefect wants to hang Pac, which I am furious at. I think that will be the inciting incident that sparks the riots on Ferrix we saw in the trailers. I'm also heartbroken for Bix, as she will surely feel some responsibility. On Coruscant, we catch up with Syril and Edie Karn, again at their breakfast table. He whines about his mother going into his secret box. He's complaining about having his privacy invaded, which is pretty rich for someone who loves the Empire and Order so much. Edie immediately changes the subject and complains about being neglected, and he's a bad son, and blah blah blah, until he tells her he got a promotion. That calms her down. She doesn't care about having an actual connection with her son. She only cares about his rise through the ranks and what it means for her. I thought he was lying until he goes to the ISB to wait for Dedra so he can thank her for the promotion, which she was somewhat responsible for. And this is not how I saw this relationship developing, but I also buy it. Syril has had a difficult time connecting with anyone this entire series. His coworkers disliked him, he failed to inspire the Corpos, his life is in shambles, and then he saw an interrogation by the ISB as human connection. Oh, Syril, no. He admits to waiting outside of the ISB headquarters just on the chance that he could see Dedra and thank her, and his intense insistence that they are kindred spirits who want the same thing had my mouth just open in shock. It shocks Dedra too, who seems rattled after the encounter. I'm sure their story isn't done. I do think the ISB will need Syril to find Cassian, but this scene is going to change how I view everything going forward. Within the ISB, the Rebel network starts to take some shape. Dedra is able to link Cassian to the Aldhani heist with enough confidence that Partagaz encourages her to continue the investigation. Her aide was awfully helpful in that scene, and I'm starting to think he might be up to no good. I mean, all of the Imperials are up to no good, but I wonder if he saw his supervisor overtake Blevin, and maybe he'll take some inspiration from that. I wonder if he's gonna try to make a power grab for himself. Dedra brings up Cassian's mother and calls her too old and frail to be a threat, which I think will wind up being another example of the Empire underestimating people. I mean, Marva is sick, but she obviously has the love and respect of the community. I like the idea that she could be a real leader in standing up to their oppressors on Ferrix, a problem the Empire could have solved if they actually saw her for who she is. We also learn that the ISB has captured a rebel pilot because they were using some stolen Imperial tech. After an interview with Dr. Gorst, they revealed their affiliation with Krieger, one of the rebel leaders mentioned by Saw Gerrera last week, and the Empire learns of an upcoming attack that Luthen tried to convince Saw to help with. If this Krieger person is captured, it could be bad news for the Rebel network. Staying on Coruscant, let's hop over to Mon Mothma's part of the episode where we got some surprising revelations. First, we see her in the Imperial Senate where things are definitely more lively than they were last time. She tries to deliver the kind of rousing speech we would have seen Padme deliver in the Clone Wars to thunderous applause, but now senators are shouting over her or at her. With the subtitles on, you can see that there are boos, but there are also cries to listen to her, but it's an overall feeling of chaos and resignation and defeat as senators power down their pods in a snide act of defiance. It's like they find their presence there to be an annoyance. They don't want to do their jobs. Some probably feel like it's pointless to try. Some certainly side with the Emperor over Mothma. It all feels rough. It also seems like Tales of the Jedi came out at an appropriate time because this whole situation makes me think back to the Dooku shorts and how he saw the failings of individual senators who had abandoned the needs of their people in favor of personal greed. If you didn't watch Tales of the Jedi, the Dooku episodes are especially relevant to this one scene in Andor. Mothma then gets a surprise visit from her cousin, who turns out to be Vel. I was very much on board with the idea that she was Luthen's daughter. I suppose that's still possible, but seems far less likely now. I like this development anyway. We see that Mon knows what Vel has been up to and that she works with Luthen, and we see Vel kind of parroting the words of Cinta, that the rebellion always comes first and then whatever time is left can be spent with the people you love and care about, which I don't agree with. I think if you separate yourself from what you love, you will forget what you're actually fighting for, and instead you'll focus solely on what you're fighting against. I don't think Vel fully believes that. I think she's trying to convince herself after her conversation with Cinta. Perrin keeps finding new ways to annoy me as they share a meal together. He asks if Vel is finally gonna find a husband, which shows he doesn't know her at all, and then he drones on about politics and his dislike for them right in front of his senator wife. Not to mention, everything they have is because his wife is political, and he suggests that there is more going on between Mothma and Tay Kolma than meets the eye, which is true. He's right that they're up to something, it's just not romantic, and I am really scared at where that jealous thinking will lead. Perrin, you're awful. But it was fun seeing Vel dig at him while he continued to be oblivious, and I liked seeing Mothma have a family member that actually knows and likes and understands her, some support system that reminds her what they are doing is right, even if it was only for one day. Unfortunately, Mothma has to go right back to struggling to stay afloat, both metaphorically and financially. She and Tay need to hide a 400,000 credit donation they made to their charitable foundation, and Tay thinks the best way to do that is by getting a loan from a questionable banker. The air quotes are doing a lot of heavy lifting today, but I'm interested to see Mothma having to go against her morals and work with people she rather wouldn't for the sake of the galaxy. It plays right into a key question Star Wars asks: how do you fight oppression without losing your soul? How far is too far in the fight against evil? I don't think this tarnishes Mothma in my eyes if she goes through with it, but it can be the start of a slippery slope. One dubious but necessary choice makes the next dubious but necessary choice even easier. Okay. Now let's finally head over to the prison on Narkina 5, where most of this episode actually takes place. We see that Cassian hasn't been lazy while serving his prison sentence. Back on Aldhani, he didn't seem to enjoy working with the team all that much, but he learned. Now he and the other 6 men at his table are operating well together. When Ulaf, their oldest teammate, needs some help, Cassian balances things out by mixing up their positioning, which Kino, their foreman, calls a wise move, and Cassian gives that credit to someone else. He has not only learned to be a team player, but I see him taking more and more of a leadership position, knowing each teammate well, and seeing how they can balance one another. Speaking of Kino, we start to see that he has some level of kinship with his people. He was very gruff in the previous episode. He still is that way overall, but he genuinely seems happy that Ulaf is getting to the end of his sentence, and then he switches back over to unhappiness when Cassian tries to dig for information. Because we see the next level of Cassian's leadership when he heads off to file away at a pipe in the bathroom, and then he has a conversation with another inmate at another table as a new man is brought onto the floor. They note how many guards come, what weapons they carry, the fact that they're not wearing their special boots, the prisoner's ability to touch the handrail without getting shocked, and so on. And I've just realized we have handrails in Star Wars. A 15-foot drop? Better put up some safety measures. An endless fall into a bottomless pit? Handrails are for the weak, but basically Cassian and his new buddy are working on a plan for escape, which isn't a surprise. Obviously, Andor isn't going to spend 6 years in jail. The tension is dialed up to 11 when their work shift ends, and we see Cassian's team trying to communicate with the other rooms and levels. The power briefly cuts out as if some massive electrical event happened, and everyone starts panicking. The only thing they can figure out is that something is very wrong on level 2, or is it? Kino tries to calm everyone down and reminds them how long it takes word to travel from one area of the prison to another, which does make some sense, and just adds to the hopeless feeling in the prison. It seems nearly impossible to keep up with one another. Cassian continues to ask Kino questions about the facility and continues to get shut down. His foreman just wants to keep his head down, serve his time, and get out. He's afraid anything he says could jeopardize that plan, but Cassian repeats some of the same words he has said over the course of the series, that the Empire doesn't care about the people it oppresses. People mean nothing to them. Cassian could steal from the Empire because they couldn't imagine anyone would find a way through their security. In the prison, they feel like they have all the control thanks to their electrified floors. They don't need to bother observing because there's simply no way anyone could ever defeat their perfect system. The next day, the rumors intensify as Cassian's team hears that everyone in a room on the second floor was killed, but they don't know why or if it's true. Kino starts to slip, and it's Cassian that keeps him in line. I still think we're building up to a swap in leadership for the floor. The entire episode, we see Olaf's health continuing to decline, and it finally fails for good at the end of one of their shifts. A doctor confirms he has had a massive stroke and euthanizes him. We see Kino's faith in the system finally begin to crack. Olaf was next to be released, and he didn't make it. Then the doctor leaks the truth of what happened on level 2. Instead of releasing prisoners, the Empire simply moves them to another level. When the other prisoners figured out what was happening, they were killed to keep it secret. The prisoners are all going to die on Narkina 5. They will never get out by playing the Empire's game. And the episode ends with Kino immediately switching sides and answering the question Cassian has been asking all episode. I love that ending. Kino was the man who thought he could get ahead by playing the game the Empire had set up for all of them. He stepped on his fellow inmates to get ahead, he became a manager, he had faith in a system that was never designed to be won. It was designed to be a distraction, but he is fully on board now. Getting Kino on his side is a huge win for Cassian and the other inmates, who I'm sure will be making their escape in the next episode. I cannot wait to see that. While I didn't enjoy this episode as much as last week's, I think this is shaping up to be my favorite overall arc of the series so far. The build-up has been phenomenal, the prison has been shown to be this incredibly bleak place with little hope, and that is not normal for Star Wars, to be sure. But knowing that we will see the prisoners rise up and seeing how that all takes shape, I am so ready to pump my fist as they take over this hellhole and steal it from the Empire. I'm speculating a bit, of course, but come on. I don't see how this arc can end without an insanely satisfying victory for Cassian and the rest of the inmates. As for his personal part of the journey, I think we will see him continue to take on a leadership position to save as many people as he can. Like I said, I can't wait to see it. But that's all I've got to say for now. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments, and come back at 6 p.m. Eastern to join our live after show, No Ifs and or Buts, to talk about everything I didn't cover here with Molly and our friends at Scoundrels Inc. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for all our Andor coverage, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page for our video reactions and audio commentaries for every new episode. And you can check out this playlist for all of our existing Andor content. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.